Hi everyone, today's episode is for you if you want to learn how to own your own shit or you'd like your partner to own their own shit. So stay tuned so that you can, basically hear what we're talking about here, which is accountability, and hopefully share it with anyone that you think could benefit. So Ros, we can talk about owning our own shit today.
Owning our own shit, which you've described as the possibility of being, is it the sixth love language?
Well, it's the sixth love language, but I think it should be the first love language, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it would be a good one. A great way to start relationships, go forward in relationships for people to recognize what their part in something is and to take that accountability and to be able to do something different with it. So perhaps we could just start by talking a little bit about what we really mean about accountability and people owning their own shit.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we mean?
Go for it, Ali.
Well, it's a hard thing to do, isn't it? To actually acknowledge where we might be getting something wrong, where our behavior might be having a negative consequence, or things that we do that are okay for us, but not okay for a relationship or our partner might be having an impact. It's a really hard thing for human beings to say, actually, yeah, you're right. This is a problem for me. And I'd like to address it with you and figure it out.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you think necessarily that you're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, it's about how is what you're doing impacting your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. So to you, it might be fine. To you, it might be, me doing this isn't a problem. But is it impacting your partner? Is it impacting that relationship?
Indeed, and that's where what you've just said is so important, isn't it? Because it's how is it impacting your partner, but then how does that then impact the relationship? So in
Right.
fact, it is impacting you too.
Right. Yeah. And this could be a romantic relationship. It could be a marriage. It could be a business partnership. It could be a podcast relationship. Could be
Hmm.
any kind of
Friendship.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Friendship.
Yeah. And so, really, something that we feel very strongly about, and I think also we can relate to in terms of our work and what we've talked about in previous episodes about the sort of negative cycle we can get into in our relationships.
Mm.
And I think this is one area where that can show up, isn't it?
Yeah. How are we going to bring this alive so people can relate to this? Just trying to think if we can give perhaps an example of how it could potentially be playing out in any kind of relationship.
So, why don't we use the dishwasher as an example of this, Ali?
Okay.
So it could be somebody, we were talking about this, weren't we, in the episode around carrying the mental load.
Mm.
And what if it's somebody who is really, really almost to a point that might seem as controlling, wanting the dishwasher loaded in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
And they find it really, really hard if anybody does anything different to how they've asked for it to be done and how they want it to be done. So how could that then be thought about in terms of what somebody's part is and their accountability and the impact on the others?
Yeah, it would be easy for that person to feel kind of quite righteous in their position, wouldn't it? Well, look how
Hmm.
well I'm loading the dishwasher. It really works. And it's so organized. And look at the knives all lined up and the forks in the right place. And that could be a very kind of self-righteous, comfortable place to be, couldn't it?
Yeah. And very logical for that person. It's like, no, this works really well, tried and tested.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way that you need to do this, everybody.
Yeah. But the impact is that anyone else trying to help gets criticized for getting it
Hmm.
wrong and then
You can
feels
imagine,
like,
no, don't do it like that.
Yeah.
Don't do it like that. No, no, no. I've told you. How many times have I told you, don't do that? Don't put the knives where they are.
I'm scared now.
No. But that's how it could be, couldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would be feeling scared. You feel what? That you couldn't get anything
Oh my
right?
God, I'd be like, am I going to get this right? And then every time I went to the
Yeah.
dishwasher with the knife, I'd be making sure I'm getting it in the right place and just be on edge,
Yeah. I
not
think I'd
relaxed.
probably stop bothering. I think I'd
Yeah,
probably
well, you
just leave
might
it
just
all on
stop
the
bothering.
side. Yeah.
Mm. Anyway, so I guess the dishwasher loader might be able to look at the part for them where, yeah, this is my stuff. This is something that I need for my own nervous system, for my own feeling of calmness. And however, it's perhaps something that is impacting our relationship, the family.
Or relationships, exactly, with the family, because it could be a number of people in that family who could be
Mm.
finding that really hard and thinking, oh God, here we go again. That person who's it could be the dad, could be the mum, let's say, that's doing that.
Yeah.
So in terms of recognizing, you're saying recognizing that this is having an impact on my family and on my family relationships.
Yeah.
And even though it's something that's important to me or feels right and good for me, actually, this isn't, if I carry on like this is not going to end well.
Mm. And it's likely that that's not the only area of the household that this is happening in, is it?
Hmm. There could be other ways it's showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is about checking in with yourself, isn't it? Okay, what's going on for me here? Maybe even thinking, where does this come from? Why is this so important to me?
Hmm.
Like, what's my history here? And why is this order and neatness so calming for me?
Yeah.
And then being able
Exactly.
to bring it forward and say, yeah, I recognize this is something I do and I
Hmm.
can see the impact it's having. Can I just
Hmm.
check with you what this is like?
Hmm.
It's really opening up the floor then, isn't it, to having a conversation about it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. Rather than actually just staying in that same cycle and that same sort of negative cycle where you're going to end up feeling frustrated because people aren't going to necessarily do what you want. You're going to then feel kind of uncared for. We can kind of look at this in terms of that negative cycle, can't we, and how it plays out. But actually, with what you're talking about, is that really important self reflection,
Hmm.
introspecting a little bit, thinking, yeah, what is this about? And this is my part. And even though it's good for me, maybe actually it's also important to me that I'm not impacting my family members in this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also then opens up the conversation to perhaps the other partner or the other family members to be able to say, yeah, it does impact me. And this is how it impacts me. I stop doing it.
Hmm.
Or I get really anxious about getting it right and I don't feel relaxed.
So that really open possibility of conversation, of
Mm.
understanding, of feeling more into the other person's experience as well as your own.
Mm. I guess how these things tend to show up in couples is someone is going to be trying to point it out in the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
And I think
oh,
it can be a critical thing, can't
yeah,
it?
yeah. Someone trying to say, oh, for goodness sake, you always do this. Why do you do it like that? Or, why are you so bloody controlling around the dishwasher? And it's that they're trying to point something out, which then tends to lead to people being very defensive. Should we, I think it would be helpful if we perhaps focus on that a little bit, how people tend to deal with it when a person might point out a certain
Yeah.
behavior.
Well, you can understand that if one party is criticizing or pointing the finger, then it's very easy, isn't it, for the other person to then justify, explain, defend in some way.
Yeah. But even sometimes I think, even if someone brings it up very, very kindly and gently, even then I think people can meet that defensive position
Hmm.
because it's hard for people to hear criticism in any form.
Well, it's where it goes, isn't it? Because if we again look at what you were saying about introspection, where does it then go? Where do we take it? Do we take it that I'm bad in some way, or that I'm failing, or that I'm not good enough in some way? And so I think if we look at what may be an underlying sort of belief, negative belief about ourselves, then of course we're going to try and protect ourselves by defending ourselves or justifying or explaining,
Mm.
because it can feel really uncomfortable believing the possibility of those negative beliefs
Mm.
that are being highlighted by the other person, even if they are saying it in a kind way. It might be that the filter in which we're hearing it, the lens in which we're seeing it, is more. It's a negative about me, that they're not happy with me. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Sometimes I see it as it's like there's, if someone's got a negative belief about themselves that's held quite deeply within, that I'm not good enough, and that's come from their history or wherever it's come from, that there's that within them, that they're trying to build an ego around that says something else. I am good enough. Look at all these things I do. Look how good. So when someone's pointing out something negative, it's tapping into that negative belief, isn't it? And nobody wants to feel that.
No, no way, Jose.
Yeah. It's
Let's get
not a
away
nice
from it.
feeling. I don't want to feel like a
No.
shit person, not good enough, failure. So I'm going to defend myself here. I'm
Yeah.
going to remind this person of all these good things I do, or maybe even I'll blame them. Maybe even I'll
Yeah.
point the finger at them to deflect away from this horrible feeling in me.
It's a really good strategy to keep away from it, because also not just the feeling inside and what that's like, but also the threat to the relationship. Like if
Mm,
you think that I'm this person who's not good enough in some way or bad,
yeah.
then how is that impacting our relationship?
Yeah. You might leave me.
Yeah.
If you see this part of me that I know is in there, I think I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough. If you see that, you might leave me.
Yeah.
And that is scary.
I think another way it can show up, as well as that sort of blaming, criticizing, and defending thing, is that if we're told something that we're not doing in a way that the other person likes, in whatever form that
Yeah.
is we can go to an extreme of self-blame and shame.
Yeah. Give an example of that, Ros. I know you've got one.
Well, thinking about it, it's like, if somebody, I think it's where there's a sense of disingenuous apology in some way, where it's like, yes, I know I'm a terrible person. It's all me. I'm never getting anything right.
Yeah.
And so where it's a kind of, it's still a defensiveness, I would say, but it's in a way that it becomes about yourself
Yeah.
in a shaming sort of way. Like
Yeah.
I'm so terrible.
You're
And
right. I'm
also,
just terrible. Why are you
yeah,
bothering? Why are you even with me?
yeah, yeah. So it sort of cuts it off again, because that's sort of stopping, that's a block in between connection again.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think on the other side to that, not just the defensive way, that people can feel really bad.
Mm.
They think, oh my God.
And crumple into shame.
Yeah, and
Mm.
crumple into shame.
Mm.
And that doesn't help either, because
No.
you're then completely caught up in that rather than being able to open up a dialogue.
Mm. Hmm. It's a hard thing to do, isn't it? To come out of that shame.
It is, and it's a hard thing to break the pattern of defensiveness as well, I think, because we get very caught up in these patterns, and it can kind of rub that raw spot within us, and we're like on it again. So
And sometimes people are so familiar with doing it, they don't even know they're doing it. It's
no,
just automatic, so
yeah,
quick. So
yeah,
the first thing is to even recognize that that's happening, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And noticing what that impulse is like noticing, what
Mm.
do you feel inside
Mm.
when, or what do you, it might not even be on the inside, it might also be the outside. It's like, what is your behavior?
Yeah, because sometimes it's so quick, you can't even notice the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So automatic, it's like a shortcut to the defensive behavior.
Yeah. So I think just, there's what we've talked about, isn't it? We've talked about what it is, this sort of taking accountability and what that really means,
Mm,
owning one's own shit,
mm,
and how important it's going to be to learn to do this in
mm.
every relationship, I think. How it can kind of show up into this sort of blaming, criticizing, defending, and the shame sometimes in the different forms that can come along.
Yeah.
But I also think, there's just elaborate a little bit more on that shame thing, is that real fear of rejection
Mm,
that can come with that.
okay.
And also things that we've learned and what we talk about, you mentioned about the nervous system earlier. And I think there is that way that we can feel in some ways we've got something wrong or whatever it is that's going on inside us. We can sometimes go to that negative belief and our nervous system will go to the fight, flight,
Yeah.
freeze, fawn, the
Yeah.
fawning being over apologetic. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry I did that. I'm so, so sorry.
Yeah.
And actually, even though an apology is going to be important, it's not the whole picture, is it?
No, it's a part of it, isn't it? A part
Yeah.
of it is a part of the owning it. An apology in
Hmm.
itself, it never feels like an apology. Just the sorry word doesn't cut it, does
No,
it?
no. And I think people find it hard, even if it is a genuine sorry, to genuinely feel it,
Mm,
to trust that it's because there's something more that needs to happen.
mm,
It's deeper than that, isn't it?
mm. Okay. So we want to talk about how people can start to do more of this, don't we? So that they can own their own shit and they can move through that shame,
Hmm.
defensiveness, and actually go to a more adult position of, hang on, this is what's coming up for me. This is what I know I can do, and this is why I do it, and this is what I'd like to work on
Hmm.
differently.
I think it's important to start by acknowledging that it's really normal, isn't it? It's a very human thing that we do.
Which bit?
Well, that we go to this place of not owning our own
Mm,
shit. That it's a really easy thing to not own our own shit and to not take accountability, because of all our learnings and because of it being, like we've said, the things that we've listed really around the negative beliefs that we can sometimes have around ourselves.
mm,
But that it's something that's, I think, actually can be a really liberating thing when you talk about being an adult. I think it can be a liberating experience and we
yeah,
can feel better about ourselves when we do it,
yeah,
ironically.
yeah. I think normalizing as well that we are all human and we are going to do things that other people don't like. We're going to do things that hurt other people. We're going to do things that piss other people off.
Hmm.
And doing those things, having those behaviors isn't bad in itself, is it?
No.
Obviously, there
So
are
it's
some things
such an
that are bad,
important
but
point. Yeah.
it's more about like we're all human and we all do good things and we all do bad things. It doesn't mean we are a good or a bad person. It's a
No,
part of
that's so
us.
important, isn't it? I think it's such an important distinction you've made,
Yeah.
because then it enables people to recognize and separate from their negative beliefs so much more, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And I don't even like the word bad things because it's helpful or unhelpful things, isn't it? The label.
Well, I think sometimes people might do bad things, but it
Mm.
doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Well, yeah. They
That's
might.
it, isn't it? It's like the behavior might not necessarily be fantastic,
Mm.
but it might need some adjusting and accountability
Mm.
taken for it, but it doesn't mean to say that they themselves are a bad person.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily excuse the behavior,
No.
but it understands, we can understand why maybe some of that behavior happens if we start introspecting and looking at where these things come from.
So normalizing the fact that it's very common for us to be defensive and to not
Hmm.
want to acknowledge the negative sides that we might have, and also normalizing that we are all human and we're going to do things that aren't particularly great, as well as things that are really kind and nice.
Hmm.
So those don't
And
make us who we are.
no, exactly. And like you said as well, that Actually, I've just said that and I've completely forgotten what it was that I was going to bring up. It's like vanished out of my head. Never mind.
Is
Can't be
that
that
you
important.
owning your lack of short-term memory there?
Yeah, I'll own it. I'll
Working memory.
absolutely own that one. I think everybody around me would know that I own that too, as well as experience it. Yeah, so I can't remember. Let's move on. Let's move on to
Okay,
the
so
next
we've
point around it.
normalized the whole experience of this, and now it's all what can people do differently?
Mhm.
And a big
Mhm.
part of this is self-reflection, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really important start, isn't it? Because once we start to recognize, like we were saying, the impulse, what we do or what we're feeling inside, we can then start to question it, to think about it, and to be responsible in a
Mm.
way, isn't it? It's this accountability is being responsible for ourselves and how we impact somebody else.
Yeah.
So even if I think this is the point, actually, it might have been, who knows, the point I was going to make is that even though we might not think we're doing anything that's unpleasant or even wrong or whatever, even if it's something that we like,
Mm.
if it's impacting somebody else negatively and that person is important to us,
Mm.
then of course we need to start looking at what's going on in that dynamic
Mm.
and what we can do differently. So that noticing is going to be really, really important, and asking that question is what is my part here?
Mm.
And then how am I impacting the other?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about that this doesn't mean that it's a hard one, isn't it? Because it doesn't mean that everything that you do that irritates your partner, you're going to have to change.
Indeed.
This is going to be about a shared understanding between you and responsibility taking. We don't want one of you to start then taking on the responsibility for everything and feeling like you have to change your whole behavior.
No, and I think it's almost a scale of things, really, isn't it? It's where things become really, where there's a pattern maybe in the relationship where the same sort of thing in the terms of the negative cycle keeps happening around a similar sort of thing.
Mm.
So if there's an element of repetition, I think that can be helpful to look at.
Mm.
And also to have a dialogue about when it isn't so important maybe, or when something is important to one and it is impacting the other, how you're going to talk about that. So when there is a difference of opinion, when there is a different experience, how can that be talked about, rather than just going along with it, or being argumentative about it or defensive or whatever around it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about coming back as that team again, isn't it? And actually, let's look at this.
Hmm.
Is this something that's really important to you, or is this something that's not, it bothers you, but it's not that
Hmm.
much of a problem? I was thinking about
And
little
of
things
course,
like, some people have a specific way that the toilet roll has to be on the. I didn't even know this was a thing until a few years ago. Someone said to me, "Oh, which way do you have the toilet roll?" And I thought, what are you talking about? I've never even thought about it.
I have thought about it, and I do have a way with the loo roll.
Okay. And if it's the
Yeah.
other way?
It doesn't, I probably just change it. I
Ah,
don't I don't do anything about, criticizing or anything, because it's easy enough to change. I'll just change it round.
right.
But
I'll
then
work
you've
on.
also got people in some households I know that where, they won't have any loo roll there because somebody hasn't gone and put the new loo roll in place. So that can also be a thing, I think, that nobody replaces the loo roll.
Yeah, that's quite annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
where are we going with that? Sure.
so what is my part here? What is the impact on the other? And I think there is an importance in validating the impact on the other. It's like,
Yeah,
I can see that when I do this, this upsets you, or this affects you in this way. I can see that this really upsets and bothers you.
yeah,
Is that right?
yeah,
Am I right in understanding that and checking it out?
yeah. Good idea. So you're not just saying it, you're interacting, you're getting a bit of feedback on that.
Yeah.
And maybe that partner might be able to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't bother me that much, or yeah, it does, and this is why.
and I really appreciate you coming, because I think then there's going
Mm.
to be an appreciation. And so it's going to feel good for the person who is questioning their part, because they're going to feel, yes, this person feels then heard. My partner or whoever it is feels heard. And I'm checking out with them what's going on for them. And so it can bring you closer together again.
Yeah. Oh, and really it does, when somebody is able to do that,
Yeah.
like you said, the person doing it is going to feel good, but the person receiving it, it honestly, it can make such a difference to
Yeah.
the relationship and how it feels and the safety in that,
Yes. It's
security
like,
in it.
I can trust you. I can trust you to see what you're doing, whatever that
Mm.
is having this impact on me. And by you caring about that shows that you're caring about me.
Yeah. Do not underestimate the power of this.
No.
Owning your shit. It's,
And I think it's also important, to recognize that sometimes we will still feel somewhat defensive, but we can also see the other person's hurt, let's say,
Mm.
and we can be open about that and say there is a part of me that feels really defensive, and I know there's also this other part of me that can see that you're really hurt.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not then dismissing that that's coming up in you.
Yeah.
Like,
And then going a bit further with it and saying, I really want to look into what that part of me that's defensive is about. And I really can see that, this is part of what we get tangled up in.
mm,
And so it would be a good thing for me to think about.
mm,
Perhaps we can think about it even together.
yeah.
And so once we've done that, once we've kind of gone through those steps, I think really acknowledging how it has felt for the other. I can really see that this really hurt you. And I think it's at that stage where potentially an apology can come in
Okay. Yeah.
without conditions.
Without conditions, without explanation, without justification,
Yeah.
just an
I
apology.
hear you're hurt and I'm really sorry.
Uh, yeah.
I can see you're hurt or whatever it is. Yeah. So in brief, naming what you're doing is important. Naming the thing that that you do, the
Mhm.
defensiveness or the, oh yes, I know that I've gone to that place where I've shamed myself. Naming that, acknowledging the impact of the partner. Yeah. The validating your partner's reality,
Mhm.
and then
Checking it out.
apologizing. Yeah. And I think finally, which is a really important one, is what you're prepared to do differently the next time.
Yeah. And that may be at the start, it might be, I'm just going to be thinking about this and kind of figuring out what I can do about this. Because what you
Hmm.
don't want is to give a false kind of change in behavior, to say, oh, I'm going to do it differently next
Yeah.
time. And if you can't, that's not going to be helpful.
No.
I want to work on this would be
Yeah.
a helpful thing to
Yeah.
say if you do.
Yeah, and that maybe you can then have a conversation that's sort of open. It's like, okay, I know that this might happen again. I know, or even that I'm so used to doing this,
Mm,
or it doesn't bother me at all that I'm doing this kind of thing, but I can see that it bothers you.
mm,
So I might get caught up in it again. But, I really welcome you just giving me a nudge if that's, if I do forget or whatever. Just sort of, it's just having that openness of communication, isn't it? Of
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. Yeah. And the very start of this might simply be owning that you just get very defensive.
Hmm.
That might be the shit that you're owning. I
Yeah,
know that
good
when you point
point.
these things out, I get really defensive and
Yeah,
I'm yet to figure out why, but I know I do it.
yeah. I think that's so important because there is a sense then that somebody
Mm,
is noticing what they're doing and the impact.
mm,
And to be able to own that, as we were saying a bit earlier, I just think it's great to own it. You will feel, I think even though it might feel out an alien thing to some people,
yeah,
give it a go,
yeah.
experiment, try it out,
Let us
see
know.
how you feel. Yeah. And not in some self righteous way, like the dishwasher, but in a way that's saying, yeah, I really want to get closer to my partner. I really want to see how my part is a part of this relationship or this dynamic.
Yeah. Okay. Is that pretty much everything covered there?
I reckon if there isn't, perhaps if we've missed anything, please put in comments. We
Yeah.
can always answer. Or if there's anything else that people have thought of that they would like to hear as a subject that we discuss on the podcast, then do let us know.
Okay.
And remember to like, follow, subscribe so that we can get this out to as many people as we can.
Yeah. Great. All right. Look forward to seeing you next time, Roz.
Thanks, Ali, and you. And I'm going to go away and see where I'm not owning my own shit.
I'm sure you do all the time.
Take care.